So I bought the M5A1 US Light tank by Tamiya. This is a 1976 kit. I was in 12th grade high school. But I was looking at the kit and I wanted to build it. It's still a good kit. But it came with the mortar team. And I looked at it and I looked at it close. And I was like, they don't look half bad for 1976. I got inspired by them, and I thought of doing a small scene with just these because I found some photos for reference that I really liked that inspired me also. So I think I'm going to work on this and see how these old figures that are as old as me come out. I'm 64 years old, retired. And it's amazing the quality that I'm seeing there. I mean, they're not resin figures and they're not to me as newest, but I think I can paint these up pretty decent. So let's get started and let's see what I can do with this. All right, I got the figures kind of cleaned up here. As I said before, this is a 1976 kit. I was in 12th grade. I was 17 years old, October 1976. I never built these figures, and this is the first time ever, and after all these years, I'm actually going to do it to try to see if I can get to look like something halfway decent. So the cleanup takes a little bit from these. There wasn't any flash, no flash on a 1976 kit. I mean, you can look here at what's left on here, and there's no flash. There was no flash in the figure. There were seam lines I had to get rid of. The detail is average to subpar as far as comparing it to a modern day figure. But I think with some really good painting, I might be able to bring out the detail, and that's my plan. So to get started with a scene, I'm back to one of these. Now this is the baseball container to hold a baseball, maybe with signatures on it, and it has a place here to hold it. I already went in and it's just held on with double stick tape, easy to take off. So as you can see, it's perfect size for a little scene like this. The only problem is the height. So anything I do is gonna have to go up to this height here, which I think I'm okay with that for this scene. I wish it was tall, but it is what it is, so I'm gonna work with it, and let's get started on how we're gonna do this. I've got a photo that inspired me for this project, actually. A wartime photo here, and I'm going to use it as the basis to roughly make this scene. It's not going to be exact, it's just where I got the idea, and that's all it usually takes for me, and that's where I'm going to go with. So let's start getting at it. All right, here we are so far. I'm going to make a small wall for this diorama. Like I said, I was limited to the height because of this acrylic clear base, protective base. So I just made a plastic facade here that I'm going to sculpt on some stonework, I think. Not quite sure that's what I want to do yet, but I'm going that way. And then the back is just painted black to match the rest of the base. And the rest of this white area is going to be groundwork, stone, as I said. So that's done. Now, the rest of the project, I just painted the figures with a quick spray of Mr. Surfacer 1000 just to see if I got all the seam lines really. I've got to look those over now because the figures are actually flash free. I know some of these kits that I've seen had flash, but I guess this is a newer one put out by Tamiya, or should I say molded, and it looked pretty good just for the seam lines. I'm pretty okay with the figures. I think they're going to look good if I paint them right. So that's done. And then just with Tester's olive drab matte finish, I sprayed all the OD green elements of the diorama, the mortar, some helmets here that are going to go on the figures, the radio. Now the radio, I researched the radio 510, and it had, from what I could tell on a lot of the photos, just a little teeny antenna here for in the field. I had wanted to run like a wire, you know, going off the diorama, maybe through a spool type situation from radio to radio, but I think these were all FM. And then some of the shell casings, or should I say containers that held the mortar rounds, the ones in the kit had like a mortar round sticking out of them, and I just drilled those out to make them look used. And then there's two of them here with the cap still on, so I've done some research on those to see how they're supposed to look, etc. A lot of the stuff I do is I just start researching, typing in, you know, the elements that I'm working with: World War II 81 millimeter mortar, rounds, radio, etc. And I noticed the mortar had all these little chains at the bottom, and I have some chain, but I was like, this thing's going to be covered up with sandbags. So this is probably as much as I'm going to detail as far as weathering and painting. So anyway, so that being said, let's get at it and start working on the next phase of the diorama, which is going to be putting on the groundwork and finishing the majority of this so I can put the figures on and see how everything's going to lay out. I want everything to look tight and a lot of things happening in a very small space. I like that kind of stuff, so let's get at it. All right, I've got the stones sculpted onto the small section here. I put like a shutter piece on the side here for more interest. I've got a little more detail to add to it. I just didn't want it just plain wall. So yeah, it's come out good. I work in the stones even after I finish them. I've got this tool here. Where is it at? And I press into them around the corners just to round the edges off a little bit. That takes care of it. So next I'm going to do the groundwork. I'm going to mix the paint in with the putty like I showed last time. It's really cool that it just colors the putty. I want a darker color down here, and that way I can put my figures in, press them in where I want them, and yeah, we're getting there. It's something I've done a lot, so I'm pretty comfortable with getting it done pretty quick. So let's go. Okay, the magic sculpt is down for the groundwork, and I've positioned the figures in where I want them. The equipment and spent shells, etc., I just kind of throw around right now. I'm not sure exactly the placement. Oh, this guy's. Yeah, come on, stay there. And I added paint as I normally do. Well, not normally, but I have in recent times put some paint in with the putty, and I noticed with a lot of putty, you got to put a lot of paint. There's a difference in a ratio with a small amount I was doing for tarps as compared to this, so I gotta make a note of it. And if you're out there trying, you might want to also. The paint may have been more thin, I'm not sure, but could be the reason. So this is done here. I like the placement of everything. I think this is gonna look kind of cool when it's done. Gotta let this dry. I went ahead and put the mortar in. It's in now, so I'm not going to be able to take it out. As it is, I'm going to put sandbags around it as my reference photo. And things are going well. So next I'm going to add some grass and foliage around in the scene, and then start painting, or I may have to start painting the wall and then add the grass. It's probably what I'm gonna have to do. So that'll be next. I'm gonna paint the house wall here. I painted this black on top. So this is how it looks so far, and everything is fitting. Had to keep test fitting, make sure there was no magic sculpt in the way to close this. And yeah, it's gonna be cool. Let's get at it, finish it. All right, the static grass is on. Just put on with PVA white glue. I detailed out the shutter with some frames and hinges and little bolts. And now I've got to get my airbrush out. I've got everything masked off, and I'm gonna give it an undercoat of everything that I want, colors. So I'll come back and show you that. All right, I got the airbrushing out of my way here. I have my airbrushes out in the garage, and it's not very good to video out there, and it's just hard to show it. But I'm gonna go over the paints I use, which aren't that specific. I mean, depending on your scene setting, use whatever colors you feel are best. I used brown, Tamiya flat brown, on the figures first. Sprayed them all, and then up from the top I just used flat flesh, or no, I'm sorry. Then I used basic skin tone to hit just the tops of the figures to give the artificial light, because I'm going to paint these in acrylics. Pastel oils, these are acrylics. Then I used Russian tan for the wall, and then I oversprayed just a mist of the basic skin tone just on that a little bit. Put flat brown on this part, airbrush. Nothing's perfect, because once I go over here, I'm going to put paint over all of this. I didn't even worry about getting a little bit overspray on the mortar, just part of the weathering. For the grass, I used the bronze green just where I put the static grass, and then I came back over everything around the groundwork, and I painted that with earth green early here, and I put that all around, and I wanted it so that way it blended in with the grass around the edges, so that the grass didn't look funny, or vice versa. So that's pretty much it with this now. Next, it's all going to be about hand painting these stones, putting some mortar in it, washes, detail painting, lots to go if you've watched my other videos. So there's lots to get moving on, so let's get at it. All right, stones are painted. I use just earth colors, nothing spectacular different than I normally use. Check out my other videos. Most importantly, I just use reference photos that I pull from the internet, and these photos show stones, how they looked in Normandy, Western Germany, Belgium, places like that, and I just go with the colors I see there. This particular scene is probably somewhere between France and Germany, maybe even Normandy, late Normandy theater. But yeah, just look at your reference photos and just pick out some colors and go for it. Next, I'm going to put on the spackling mortar in between the stone grout cracks, whatever you want to call it, grout lines. And after that, it'll be a wash. Let's get at it. All right, the spackle is put in between all the cracks of the stones, and I did a layout of the figures on it just to kind of see where I'm at, and it's looking okay to me. And the next thing I need to do is I'm going to add some sandbags that they use to hold the mortar in place, and that's in my reference photo that gave me the inspiration. And as I said, it's not the exact layout as the photo, but I'm using pieces of it for this scene. So that being said, let's get the magic sculpt out and start putting the sandbags on. Okay, the sandbags are on. I added a little bit of German pale brown to the putty when I was kneading it together, and it gave it a little bit of a color. I'm gonna have to go in and paint these now. I better paint them before the wash, so that way the wash gets underneath the cracks. In case I miss anything, you don't see it. Everything has a reason that I do, so that way I don't have to worry too much about little teeny details. So that being said, let's let this dry, and then I'm gonna paint it. Sandbags painted. I'm still gonna do some more to them. They're a little shiny. But what I'm gonna do now is add the wash of burnt umber to this scene, the wall and the groundwork. So let's get at it. Okay, so I brought this diorama out because I wanted my groundwork to look like this one. And so I brought it out to see exactly what I did, and I see I put washes of ground up pastels mixed with turpenoid into the groundwork. So that's what I'm going to do, and then just doing some highlighting onto the static grass. So I'm going to do that now as the next step. All right, so what I did is I got my pastels out and I ground up some colors here that I'm going to use. And I've got turpenoid that I will mix these ground pastels with, which are basically pigments. And then I'm going to be applying them here on the groundwork and maybe a couple other places on here, like the rust I'm going to put into the hardware on this, that kind of stuff. All right, so here we are so far. I added some chipping and some weathering on the wood effects here. Did some dry brushing in the stones, and I just with some white artist oils, put a little bit in the cracks here and there, just to bring out some life with the old mortar and stuff like that. And then the groundwork is pretty much complete, except for maybe some, I'm gonna throw some leaves and stuff like that later on. I'm gonna throw the equipment down there and then paint the figures. So let's get at it and keep with the step by step. Okay, what I've got now is the figures ready to be painted in acrylics. I've already done the pants in a Tamiya flat brown and just highlighted with basic skin tone. And now I'm gonna just do the faces pretty quickly, just using field blue, basic skin tone, and this AK716. And my brush is here, so let's get at it. Alrighty, it's all finished. This classic Tamiya set of figures and the mortar, get this thing off here, is all complete. As I said earlier, 1976. I was 17 years old, and I am sure this kit has been reissued a few times by Tamiya, maybe upgraded somehow, but the molds seem to be the same. I know the older ones had more flash. This kit didn't, which was really cool. I just want to do something different and something old, and it's definitely different and it's definitely old. But I think it's pretty cool. It's pretty classic as far as when you see these figures. They go a long ways back for me. And you know, I was thinking about how this looks, and I was weaned on shepherd pain and then trained the rest of the way by Francois Verlinden. When I really think about it, I did a lot of Verlinden figures and buildings and scenes, and had his magazines, all that stuff. So all I know is it really, those two definitely have put an influence on, I would say, almost all of armor modelers and figure painters for military. Back to the kit. The figures I just did all in acrylics. I added matte, Tamiya matte finish to the paints just a little bit. The equipment all painted up in acrylics. The only thing I did is I drilled out, and I think I said it earlier in the video, but I drilled out the rounds that were sticking out the ends, and they're thrown around here. I think there's a couple of casings, round cases that have the tops or the ends still on them. I said I was going to put some leaves. I had a couple of oak leaves from AK that I threw on here and there, a shovel, and the radio. I put the wire for the radio operator here. The two grenades right here are from the mini art set Surrender at Stromont, Battle of the Bulge, because I did a video on that, and it comes on the sprue with the American figures. You get equipment, heads, helmets, and some weapons and gear and stuff like that. So I used those grenades up there, just sat them on top of the radio. And I put the Thompson submachine gun right here. He's kind of got a hold of it there. Keeping his weapon close, keeping the grenades, because they're probably under close fire right here. Northwest Europe, France, close to Germany, who knows, maybe Normandy. These uniforms are probably more the earlier D-Day invasion type thing, but they still wore them all through the war. I said the equipment's painted in acrylics, and that is pretty much it that I can say about this. It was fun. Like I said, it brought back some memories, and I had never ever painted these figures. I've had them in kits, so they seem to come as an extra sprue in a lot of Tamiya armored half-tracks, tanks, stuff like that. They just come on this extra sprue, and the instructions, come kind of separate with them. And I'll tell you what, Tamiya instructions, there's just something about them. They're just so classic and just so perfect. They're like, when I think of an armor model instruction sheet, boom, this is going to come to mind. It just always looked like this. It always was interesting, effective, detailed, well thought out, and it was no question. It was great. They're still great. I think these instructions have definitely been upgraded and revised, because I don't remember these, and obviously these aren't in any of the older kits because they didn't sell glue back then. In fact, let's see if there's a date on these. Okay, so this says 2010. So these instructions were a little bit revised because this guy was never on there. But these seem to be the same. I don't know. I can't remember that far back. And I haven't done a lot of American armor, but I'm going to try to add a few more things here from actually different countries. But, yep, this is classic. Just great memories. So, that being said, appreciate everyone watching. And please, if you have any questions, happy to answer them. And once again, the armor model community on YouTube is really cool. I'm really enjoying all the other channels. I'm learning a lot, and it keeps me motivated and interesting. And there's just a lot of great modelers out there, and appreciate all of you. And everybody who watches these videos, please like and subscribe their channels, because this is a lot of work, and take your time to show others is really great. And so I hope I'm helping some of the new people, and maybe some old as well. So thanks again for watching, and stay tuned. Got more coming up.